Hey guys, welcome back to another interview here on Tone In Entertainment, where everybody has a story, and this man certainly has a story, and that's the cheese. How are you doing tonight?
If I was any better, I'd be twins, Tony. I'm glad to be with you, buddy.
Oh, okay. I mean, congratulations, because just what, like 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
you welcomed a little
I
baby girl into this world.
Yeah, the little baby Belle has arrived. She made her debut at 7 pounds, 8 ounces, 21 inches long. I'm biased, but she's perfect. So
You can't say anything else, right?
yeah, honestly, like she's going through all the crying and feeding and all that good stuff right now. But it's like, those are just my sleep schedule has changed. Everything that people say about that is true. I don't like it that people celebrate it too much. They're like, can't wait for you to not get any sleep. And I'm just like, all right, I know I signed up for this. I knew there was going to be a lack of sleep somewhere, but she's great. I mean, it's like, I can't explain it to anybody who listens or watches the show, or to you for that matter. But something does change in your life. Um, Perspective, uh, habits, the way you think. But it's hard to put it into words, but I'm just so happy that everything's gone so swimmingly well. And she's changed my life for the better.
Yeah, well, definitely congratulations. What would you say maybe is like that? I feel like we all have those like epiphany moments, right? Where we're like, you know what? This is now what's important to me in my life, and obviously the birth of a child has to be like the number one. Is there something now that's gone through your mind that's like, okay, well, all this other stuff doesn't matter, and this is what matters now?
As opposed to family or being a father, like
Yeah.
uh, I don't know. I know that I so in addition to being the cheese, I'm a small business owner. So I'm thankful that I made the decision 4 years ago to write my own story and be my own boss. And I'm very happy to have that flexibility. Like for example, I had a job that was nearby today, and I I was able to come home, and my wife and I took our baby on a walk just as part of the lunch break, and so it does change things, and I probably wasn't as thankful. I mean, I'm thankful that I started my own business and have my own job that's specifically catered to me. Um, but I didn't take it for granted, but I wasn't as grateful for it as I am now. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
You're seeing the extra perks of maybe being your own boss
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. So really the epiphany moment was probably just I guess it's happening right this minute as I'm on your podcast is on your show, is that I'm thankful that I set up my life the way I wanted it about 4 years ago. And now things are, I wouldn't say they're easy, but they're certainly, it's beneficial to have my life the way it is now, now that I have a child. So,
Now, you decided to start up your own business. What was the reasoning for starting up that own business? Was it just working a bunch of crappy jobs, thinking you could do something better than somebody else? What was the reason?
yeah, there's always that little sliver of arrogance that all of us have if we want to set out and do something for ourselves. And that was one of the things. I always thought, I could do that better than this. I could tighten things up on this, whatever, whatever. That wasn't first and foremost in my mind, but it was part of the working a lot of different jobs. I worked mainly like government entity jobs and technical um, contract laden jobs, and they were just really weren't for me. They didn't match my personality. I was stuck behind a desk. I'm not that guy. I didn't have the beard. I didn't have the hair. I didn't have any tattoos. I didn't. I was the behind the desk, straight laced government guy, and government cheese, some might say, but it was before
Oh,
the cheese.
I like
That's
that
how
one.
that all called government cheese. But yeah, I started, so my business, if I can plug it,
Of course,
is
100%.
farmhand hauling and property maintenance. And farmhand, what we do is just basically what I said. It's property maintenance. Is if you got junk that you need to get rid of, I come and pick it up for you for a small fee. If you have landscaping that needs to be done, if you have any sort of handyman stuff that needs to be done, pressure washing, all that kind of stuff. I'm like a jack of all trades, master of none, but I get the job done in a quick and efficient manner for all my clients. And it's one of those things, along with wrestling, that there's really four pillars of my life change in the last 4 years, so to speak. It's not been linear, but it's part of those things that have changed my life, being my own boss.
Now, speaking of going and picking up junk and stuff like that, I saw you were promoting another organization called Divers Down Pollution Project, which I definitely want to commend you on, because my wife and I, we like to go once a week, to like the state park. We like to go on little runs and jogs, and it infuriates me when people throw their
Yeah.
Gatorade bottles or their little packets of nuts, like it infuriates me. Like I can't stand it. We're always people that clean up everything behind us. Why is doing something like that important to you?
Well, so it actually stems from the fact that, when I come out to the ring as a cheese, I'll throw the cheese, in the wrappers, and it makes a huge mess. But there are a lot of kids that come out to these shows, right? And for one reason or another, they love the cheese, and I love them back, and it's awesome. But at the end of the night, I make sure that the kids that are sticking around, that see me, after that I have a bucket, and I'm either picking it up with my hands, or I'm picking it up with one of those grabber thingies. I make sure that they see that, because you don't want to see it's weird for me to say this, but there are some kids that really think this, that you don't want to see your hero, just chucking out and leaving a mess, and then just like, all right, guys, I'm all cheese out, let's go home. So it's part of that perception, but it's also the guys at Divers Down Pollution Project. They've recently moved to this area. I think they were on the other coast. I'm in St. Pete, but they're on the opposite coast. But they've moved over here, and they've wanted to get involved in something, and we kind of swapped information on social media, because I'm a very big advocate of charities, if they make sense, and local businesses that aren't directly competing with mine and all that. Even if they are, sometimes I help them out. So very important parts of every community are small charity organizations that directly impact the community, and small businesses. And they're kind of both. They're a 501c3, so they're totally nonprofit. There's not a lot of like, let's get in here and let's make a show of it. And those charities have their place, that where you have a day and everybody comes out and you make a big show. Hey, I'm doing the work. That's all well and good if it's actually impacting the community. But Divers Down, what they do specifically is they go out to the beaches and waterways, and I see the same thing as you all the time: the Gatorade bottle, the liquor bottle, the cigarette package, you know, so I took my business, and I donated for the day my 12-foot dump trailer, and it has like a huge capacity to it. I think you can put like something up to 4 tons in there. But anyway, it's they filled the thing up basically like 3/4 of the way with just one strip of land that they were looking out there on Gandy Beach, near St. Pete over here. And there were like boards. there were nails and screws and things that could get into people's tires. There was lots of trash, there's all kinds of stuff. So I see that every time I go out to a job or if I'm on my way to a show or whatever. And I'm just like, God, I wish I had the time to do that. And then when those guys, you know, we connected, I was just like, you know what, now's the time. So I made sure to take a little time for that. My daughter was just born, and I mean, she's just born now, but it was like probably only like 4 or 5 days afterwards. And I made sure that I could go out there and take like 15 minutes and just like help them out, because I think they're only going to grow. And I hope that is a trend that happens with everybody, because these waterways are very, very important to us, not just the local fishermen and that the businesses that are involved, but our wildlife and everything that's involved in this area, like fish, the birds. It affects all of us, really.
Yeah, no, well, much props for getting involved and donating your work supplies for that. I love that. I wish we all had more time to do just a little bit more. But if everybody just did less of it, we wouldn't have to have more time to do more of it. Now let's talk about the cheese. Okay. How did the name come about?
Well, so I was trained by Jay Lethal, and Jay Lethal, when you go through wrestling training, you have a portion of it, which is my absolute favorite. It's the learning about promos and what you say to people in the crowd. And I had my whole persona was not the cheese, wasn't anything necessarily close, but I basically said to the group of people that were critiquing our promos and listening in and helping out, I said, I borrowed from the old Saturday Night Live sketch with Chris Farley, Matt Foley, and I'm a motivational speaker, and I live in a van down by the river. You can survive on a steady supply of government cheese. So I was a moldy cheese at that point, but I didn't know it yet. And so I was just cutting this promo, and I said, why does everybody in here look like they're on a steady diet of government cheese? And you smell like it too. And the guys in the room seemed to like it. And Jay Lethal says, I never say just Jay because that's too casual. I put some respect on his name. I always say Jay Lethal. But he says, that was good. That was good. But you seem to be really mad about that government cheese. And so from then on, he called me government cheese.
Oh, no.
And then until he dropped the government and everybody just started calling me cheese. And so I just thought, I think I have an opportunity here. And I went from just cheese to the cheese. And here we are, flag and all.
I was going to say, you got the flag in the background and you've got the sunglasses, which are also part of the cheese gear right there.
The whole deal. I'm wearing one of my first class brethren, Ron Bass Jr. shirt, representing him. But I always I actually just got a promo. So I for a show this weekend. So I'm kind of cheese geared out. So not that I wouldn't try to impress you, but I didn't do this to be like, hey, I gotta make sure Tony sees it.
Right now. You don't have to impress me on here. You've already done it enough already out and about in your matches and stuff like that. Now, speaking of gear now, speaking of gear and props and everything, you've got like the little slam buddies too, and t-shirts and like the Blockbuster video influence type t-shirts. Tell me about just some of that cool merchandise you have out there.
Oh man. So I've used Slam Buddies in the past. The product is really good. I really like it. I've currently am going through a stock of JCJ gear makes them. They're called grappling pals. So a play on, it can't be Slam Buddy or it can't be Wrestling Buddy. It's grappling pals. So it's a
Okay, okay.
concept that they came up with, or that JCJ Gear came up with, and they're really fun too. The Blockbuster, a fun fact for those who don't know, the Blockbuster Cheesebuster video shirt is an homage to when I actually worked at Blockbuster Video
Oh, okay.
back in the day. So that's not on the list of like crummy jobs that I hated that made me want to start my business. I loved working at Blockbuster Video. And I was raised on a farm. I know manual labor. The reason I started a property maintenance business because I like to get my hands dirty. And then you think, this guy who talks like a redneck is working at a Blockbuster. I mean, it was something to behold. It was a lot of fun. I did it during college and a little bit after college, but that shirt is an homage to that. I have my Cheesemania shirt. That's the blatant ripoff of Hulkamania that a lot of folks do.
Everybody's done Mania behind their name, so
right.
It's not just you, right?
Let me just go ahead and get that shirt in there, get it out of the way, do it. I'm very, very, very fortunate that I'm surrounded by a lot of talented people who can do those logos for me, because there's no way I could do it. Like the cheese flag, the logo it's based on my I don't know if you can see it proper.
I got
but
you.
It's based on my that is a local artist in St. Pete, Fredo de la Muerte, who did that tattoo for me. And he also did all my other stuff up here. The rooster with wearing the tie, drinking coffee, not bizarre at all. I'm sure it's like show and tell.
No, but when you said this on your forearm, the audio actually cut out for a second. What was that based off of? What is that on your arm?
So it's an original piece, and so I put it. I had it put on there, and it's on basically all the gear, on pretty much all my merch for the most part, by this tattoo artist who's local to St. Pete. His name's Fredo de la Muerte, and he's a tremendous artist, and he kind of got the ball rolling for that. But I've used a lot of different guys have helped me out. The Cheesebuster video and all that stuff is all, I try and keep it, just like I support local businesses, I try and support local artists. They're all things that, these guys who are in the industry have just created with their minds and with their hands. And I can't, I put them up there. I don't want to leave anybody out, so I don't want to start like name dropping too hard, but I put those things up there. I share them all the time. And if I'm sharing them, probably 99% of the time I have used that person for some piece of art or something like that. But this, other than getting to be the cheese, merchandising is like the most fun part. It's tremendous. Like there's never a dull moment whenever I'm creating a shirt or something with somebody, or a piece of merch, or I have sunglasses made that are just regular sunglasses with this cheese drip on it. I mean, and everybody has fun. So much so, and I didn't realize this, that so much so that 3 people dressed up as the cheese for Halloween, unprompted, because they were able to get enough stuff and dress up as me, and it still blows my mind.
Wow. So like this year there was that meme, right, where like everybody was a Halloween costume, right? I think you had made one too as well, like, oh,
Yeah.
buy the cheese costume, everybody. So maybe eventually we can have actual, like, so people, I mean, it's great that they're buying your merch, but maybe they could get it all in like one bundle and become the cheese. Might be something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect them to take it seriously, but you know what? If nobody ever dresses up as me again, that's okay. But I'm just like, this part of me is living such a dream, where I'm just so impressed and like touched and all these things, that just it's part of the fistful of giving that wrestling just keeps giving to me. So
okay, I didn't know that you worked at Blockbuster Video. Okay, so I, I want you to try. I mean, I grew up as a Blockbuster kid, right? A Toys R Us kid, a Blockbuster kid. Like, I was a teenager. I had my own Blockbuster card. I could ride my bike to Blockbuster Video. I could go in and you would just get lost, okay, inside Blockbuster Video. You'd spend like an hour and rent one video. It was like one of the most amazing experiences. I don't know, picking up that tape or going in and be like, oh my God, there's one behind the box. It's here. It's here. Like, what were some of like maybe your favorite stories like working at Blockbuster Video?
Oh, dude. It So I packed in a lot during the time that I was there. I was there for several years, but made some really good friends. They're still my friends to this day. I had just a buddy of mine came to Tampa Bay Pro Show. I hadn't seen him in like, gosh, probably like 10 years. And he saw that I was wrestling. You know, you have those casual Facebook friends where you're just like, when you were friends and you saw each other at work every day, you were like best friends. But then you just kind of fade out. And that's such is life.
Right.
And he saw that I was wrestling and he happened to be coming to St. Pete. And because I was a manager at 3 Blockbusters in Gainesville. And he saw me there and he came out and we picked right back up where we left off because we were always in Blockbuster together, and it was so fun, just lasting friendships. But one that I kind of wish that I was the cheese. Like I'm a big teddy bear. Like a lot of people know that about me. But when it's business time, uh, I can I can show you this business time basically. But it the this one fella came in. He was like, and there's no offense to any gym bros listening or watching, but he was such a gym bro where he just like he had the tank, like barely there tank, and he even came in with his gym bag, which I couldn't figure out why. And he had like a gallon of water, and I'm looking at him like, are you this isn't the gym, this is Blockbuster, pal. He comes up to me and he's just like, we had this very strict policy, right? Where, because it was a college town, it was in Gainesville, Florida. And you, along with your Blockbuster card, you had to show your ID to prove that it was you, because there were so many people who were like roommates of whatever, and they would put late fees. Remember late fees?
Of course. Yeah.
Um, they had to we had to start this policy because so many late fees were on Jessica's account because Jennifer, got mad at her and didn't return them and all this kind of stuff. So I asked homeboy Jim Bro for his for for his ID, and he didn't have it. He said, I don't have it. And I'm like, I can't rent to you, pal. And he's like, well, you got to rent to me. I need this for my class. And I'm like, I look at what he's written, like one of them is like Ghostbusters. So I'm like, so you don't have terrible taste in movies, but you do seem to be a liar. But he didn't like that I wouldn't rent to him. And he was just like, I'm going to wait on you in the parking lot. You're not going to rent to me. I'll stand out there. And I'm like, it's 10 o'clock. So if you got 2 hours to kill, go ahead and do it, And he didn't end up waiting on me, but I was just like, it was laughable because he was threatening to beat me up because I wouldn't rent him Ghostbusters because he didn't have his ID.
I mean, I love Ghostbusters too. It's not worth fighting in the parking lot for.
I mean, yeah, like, and I'm like, and again, you snap back, like I wasn't nearly as relaxed as I am now as a person. I've really found who I am, and then I was just very insecure in the world. I was in my early 20s. I was trying to, I had aspirations of whatever I had aspirations of. I've almost forgotten by now. I wasn't me. So I was just like all worried about it, about like upsetting this guy, and not that he was going to fight me. I never worried about that, but I was worried about that he was going to like somehow call and be like, hey, this kid wouldn't rent me Ghostbusters. So, I'm very mad at your store. And I was so worried about this, that kind of stuff. But I just, I tucked it away. And every time I think about it, I laugh. And it's just so like, it's one of those you had to be there moment to find the comedy in it. But it's also such a weird story be able to tell like 12, 15 years later, however long ago it was.
Now, have you watched the new the Blockbuster series on Netflix yet?
Yes, I
Oh,
have.
okay. So how does that maybe fit into maybe your experiences?
Well, so it's not the worst show I've ever seen.
Okay.
Um, my, my thoughts on it are this: I think that they should have started in like, if they wanted to make it a long-term successful show, they should have started in like the 90s when Blockbuster was king and it was in the heyday, and you just go over regular old 90s Blockbuster life. You know, those memes, there's several of those memes out there that's just like, you just rented two N64 games and two DVDs, and you just got a large pizza from Pizza Hut and a Pepsi or whatever, and you got some, and your dad let you get some snacks from checkout line Blockbuster. Life is good. You
Right.
know, start there, build a show around that, and then careen into the early the mid aughts when uh, Redbox and Netflix and all these other entities were just basically trying to kill Blockbuster, and they succeeded because of Blockbuster's arrogance. So build a story around that. Tell the story of leading into the last, being the one of the last Blockbusters, and then tell like a sub story after where you're surviving as the last Blockbuster. But the way it is now, like the people who wrote the jokes did a good job on some of the one liners and some of the things that were in there, and the same for the actors. But the overall storylines were just kind of weak for me, and they didn't play into how I felt as a Blockbuster employee. And that could have everything to do with place and time, but I don't really think so. You know what I mean?
No, of course. Yeah, it's so funny that we mentioned the whole Blockbuster thing because right before I got on here, my wife and I were having dinner and we are like we just had finished another show. And then she's like the Blockbuster show. We haven't watched it. I'm like, no, put it on my stuff. Like that's a show that we haven't watched it, but we were just talking about like an hour ago about getting into that show. It's kind of funny because I wanted your interpretation because like I grew up working in a grocery store. So when I watch Clerks and like stuff like that, I'm like, oh my God, these are the people. These are the people that
Yeah.
came into the store, you know?
Honestly, I truly believe this, and I think a comedian said this at one point, but I truly believe that everybody in this country, whoever you are, whatever your identity is, you should be, you should have to sign up, and maybe it's part of a course or something, but work at least 2 years in hospitality, service industry, or retail. It will change your life, because the things that you talk about, Clerks, the things that you hear and see, and just like the things that come out of people's mouths when they come into the store. Like, some people are the nicest, most beautiful people you ever meet that come into a Blockbuster, or and in your experience, like a grocery store. But there are some people where they're just absolute animals and they have zero regard for anybody's thoughts, feelings, or that they're actually another human in this, this meat suit. So yeah, I that's my opinion. That's my thought on that. But it also gives you a greater appreciation for situations and people and stuff like that. But I will say, this was always my disclaimer as a Blockbuster employee, about the show. Watch it, form your own opinion. That's just my opinion, is just one opinion. It may not match up with yours. It may not match up with your wives. I would encourage you to watch it because there's just enough of a nostalgia hit in there where you'd be like, oh, this is cool. But I would say probably for you, and I don't know you enough to say this for sure, but I would say probably about after episode 5, you're either going to be like, I love this is the greatest thing, or you're going to be like, not for me.
Right. Makes sense. Now let me ask you about the beard. The beard is epic, right? How long have you been growing that beard out? And is it gonna get any bigger? That thing is epic.
I just I just trimmed it
Oh,
because the
I thought
baby
it was
bell.
longer. Right. I thought it was actually longer. Yes.
actually longer. Like, you can thank my daughter. She has already learned how to grasp the beard and pull it. And it's also like whenever I'd hold her, I'd have to do this, and I felt like Gandalf or something. Like I just had to swipe it behind my shoulder, and as I'm holding my infant, and so I was like, I didn't want to because it was insane, like out of control, and I liked that. I really like, because again, I don't have a government job, and I do my own things, and so nobody can tell me how to dress and how to act as they had in the past when I did work those type of jobs. But now it's for a different reason that I've trimmed it up. It's still there, it
Right.
still exists, and I'd say it's pretty solid beard, but it's shortened for now, and because I I did grow it out for it's like maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Like one time I came into training, and at Jay Lethal School, and I had shaved everything down to a fine stubble, and my hair was just getting out of the awkward phase, and it was getting longer. And I was like, I looked in the mirror, I was like, I look good, this is great. And then Jay Lethal said, pull your hair back like this. Pulled my hair back. He looks at me, he goes, no, I don't like it. And he walked away.
Some things just
And I was
work, right?
like, okay, I get it. I'll grow the beard back out. Everybody was saying the same thing, though. They're like, yeah, I've posted a few photos of old government cheese, and I had a hard part, very short, shorn hair, and I had zero facial hair. And I think that was when I worked at Tampa International Airport, and people were just like, "Don't ever post this again because it ruins."
You're ruining the mystique of the cheese. You can't.
Right.
Now you said earlier, it's funny because you said something about your heroes. You don't want to the kids out there, like, but when you do come out to your entrance, you get you're definitely a fan favorite out there. The kids love the cheese. How does it feel when everybody just starts chanting cheese, 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 cheese?
It in the same way, in a similar way. I won't say the same way because my daughter is above everything in my life now. But in a similar way, of that feeling that I can't explain it. Um, it's just unreal, because I've never been I was never anybody's favorite, like growing up, other than my dearly departed grandmother. But I it was a cool thing to find out that people like, and there's still like a little tiny bit of like imposter syndrome. It's like, what if they stop chanting cheese one day and they just don't care and whatever? And I'm just like, nah, enjoy it. The inner workings of my head is an odd place to be, but it, you know what? It really feels good, seeing people doing it, and they do the cheese while I'm throwing cheese and everything. But what really makes me feel the best is when a kid, comes up to me after the show and they're just interested. And so I take the time to talk to them. They're interested in the cheese. Some of them say, hey, I want to be a wrestler whenever I get older. And I'm just like, I got a school for you. Go there. And some of them are just like, I love your glasses. I was like, I got them for sale. I love your I got that for sale too. But what really makes me feel the best is when the kids, like, I interact with the cheese maniacs, the cheeseheads, the people that interact with me the way that I would want, you know, whenever I was a kid, the way I would have wanted Sting. Quite frankly, if I met Sting, the way I would want Sting to interact with me now. And it's a it's a hard lesson for when a kid like actually gets to meet their hero or a person that they're like obsessed with or that they want to get to know better or they have the character shirts and all that stuff. I never ever want to crush a kid's thought, not for vanity's sake, but just like I'm just a regional guy having the best time of my life. But the biggest thing I want to take away from the people that are watching me, the kids, the adults, just having a good time, is that I want them to know that their support is more than appreciated. It, these tickets aren't always free. There's a lot of free shows out there on the indie circuit in Florida, but everybody who wrestles, no matter what capacity you're in, you have an obligation to pay attention to those people because they have paid their hard-earned money to come and see you perform. And there's nothing like it in the world, man. It's honestly, again, my daughter being born trumps everything. But and before that, the best thing I'd ever done was become the cheese.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to throw out something for you. If you ever have to make the heel turn, then you could become the government cheese and go out there and take people's stuff away. Just throw moldy cheese at them or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There's government cheese where I'm just like strict, and I go back and I shave the beard and I cut the hair, which I don't ever want to cut my hair as long as I don't have to. But I'm just like almost like a right to censor type cheese. So I'm
Right.
government
I think
cheese.
that could work as a heel.
Or
Yeah.
there's moldy cheese, which is I'm just a disgusting version of myself, and it's just like everything I throw out is just green, nasty cheese.
I actually like the right to censor cheese more than all of them
Yeah,
because people hated them. People don't like to be told what not to say and what not to do. I like the government right to the censorship cheese. I like that one. I like that.
hopefully I'll never do that because I'm not comparing myself to John Cena, the great one himself, but I have had a lot of people make those comparisons for my little regional plot of the world, and because of the kids, and a lot of people have kind of projected that onto me for like you've got the Cena syndrome with you. You can't ever be a bad guy because it will tank a lot of different things, but who knows? You never say never,
No,
especially in pro. But I really love the cheese that I am and the cheese that I've cultivated at this point.
no, I'm sure they said that to Hogan at one point too. You can never be bad and look like one of the greatest heels of all time, right? It's like
Now,
sometimes it just works.
yeah, certainly. I remember watching that as a boy, and just that feeling of betrayal is just so real. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually happening. And I remember almost being in tears at my grandmother's house because we always watched wrestling together. Um, and she was like, do you want me to turn it off? And I was like, no, I have to keep fighting. But yeah, I don't want to be that guy for some
Now you said um, you would want that feeling that if you had met Sting, okay,
yeah.
for him to have I you can see right back there, I have my whole thing to Sting. But I mean, that's just a little bit of it. My favorite of
Right.
all time. Is he your favorite of all time too?
He is without a doubt, without question, my most favorite performer of all time. I actually just recently bought it's like a retro remake Fatal Encounter Sting hat, and it's
I've
like
seen
neon,
those. I've seen those, yes.
so good. They're so good. I like. I don't. I have zero issues telling the world that I would buy, and I still buy Sting merchandise. I still, I go to, there's a place that's nearby, and I've done a lot of business with them, and they're great people at Retro Rat Toys and Comics in Largo. And Tampa Bay Pros actually had a couple of shows there. They're actually having shows there this month. But I go there all the time, and I peruse through, and if I see they have the loose figures,
Oh yeah.
if I see a big one, I almost always go home with it. It's just like always and forever will be. I have plenty of wrestling icons that I hold near and dear, but like Sting is the limit for me. He is the guy.
See,
Sure.
I knew we connected on a different level. I knew there was another reason, right? It's funny because I recently I collected action figures from like the WCW days, right? And recently I just came to the point where I'm like, I have too much, right? I've been selling all my merchandise, but I put a bin aside and I have a full bin
Yeah.
still of my Sting merchandise that I absolutely refuse to, like, it would just be heartbreaking. I couldn't do it, you know?
And our brother, I like, oh my gosh. I would do the same. I got rid of a lot of my stuff years and years and years ago, but I'm now kind of quietly accumulating uh, more Sting merch.
Now, in addition to like, being busy
Really
doing,
frozen.
you were frozen there for a second. I think you're good. Are
Oh,
you good? Yeah, you're good. You're good. I saw you also do like some trivia nights as well too.
yes. So Trivia with the Cheese is every Tuesday night at a really awesome bar that ties into the Blockbuster theme called Beer Busters. And it's basically like walking into an old Blockbuster. They have all the movies on the wall, and they serve local craft beers. It's fantastic if you're a beer drinker, but if you're not a beer drinker, they also have like the classic snacks, like that Blockbuster would have, popcorn and all that kind of good stuff that for that hit of nostalgia. Um, they really like it's such a cool place. But every Tuesday night I do it. But I've since I was out for a while with Baby Bell, I have to give a shout out to a buddy of mine, Logan Cruz, who in the ring we're not really buddies,
You cut
but
some promos on him before, yeah.
yeah, for there are two things that we are as thick as thieves on, and I don't think anybody can take this away from us, and that we don't mind sharing. But two things. One is every year we have, well, for the last 2 years at least, we have Hope for the Holidays, which is a show that it was Logan's idea, but I partnered up with him on that show last year, and we did it again this year, where it benefits a charity called Christmas Toy Shop Project, and we raise thousands worth of toys and money so that kids in the Pinellas County area can have gifts for Christmas. Families can come in and they can shop, they can create a wish list. It's a fantastic program. So we're partners in that, but we're also partners in the trivia. Now I have a big obnoxious banner that a friend of mine, who's also a business partner, made for me that says "Trivia with the Cheese," and it's got the cheese on my face, and I love it. But Logan, not to be outdone, had a had a logo made, and he called it "Cues with Cruise." So whenever I'm unable to be there because of family obligations, he's been there. I'm going to return next week, but it's not the last that people will see Logan there, because he's always there too. We both love Beer Busters, and really, there's a Billy, the owner of Beer Busters, is like a huge wrestling fan. So if you're in and around St. Pete area, Pinellas Park, and you go to Beer Busters, you probably will find a wrestler in there hanging out. So it's a cool place to go.
Okay.
So yeah, every Tuesday with the cheese, and I do it at other places too, Arcadia, and I'm looking to start some up in Sarasota, and there's some cool stuff going on there with Trivia with the Cheese, but we'll have to wait and see to find out.
Okay, sounds good. Now, last week when we posted this teaser picture out, okay, somebody commented on it, and I feel like I have to ask the question. They said, did you tell the story of you being left at the Grand Canyon? I know nothing about this. I'm just, taking what somebody commented and asking the question.
Oh man, I really wish that there was some awesome story that I could tell you about that. But what that is a very very close friend of mine from high school, uh, Christy, who married my childhood best friend Troy. They're both great people, have great kids, and live a nice, great life, and they're just awesome people. But we've been friends forever and a day. And since it was on my personal stuff too, she took the opportunity to make a Joe Dirt reference. So if you ever seen Joe
Yeah,
Dirt?
I've seen Joe Dirt, yes, with David Spade, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
The origin story of Joe Dirt being on his own was that his parents forgot and left him at the Grand Canyon. So essentially, it's one of the sickest burns that one person can do to another, which is what she did to me, which is note that I am, in fact, Joe Dirt.
Okay. Okay. So it's like an
but
inside joke almost more than
uh,
some epic story then.
yeah, kind of. We reference Joe Dirt to each other all the time, but I wish I had something rich and more meaty for you, but that's all I got.
I felt like I had to at least ask the question. Okay.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Ask that, right?
Right. Now growing up, of course, I mean, my love from wrestling is from the dad was brought home from the hospital. My dad had me watching wrestling, and like at one point when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a little stinger. I wanted to, I really wanted to wrestle as a little kid. And, until I found out like you couldn't like go to high school and wrestling wasn't professional wrestling. It was like, it was real wrestling. I mean, or, amateur wrestling. Like, what got you to actually make that first step and really go into that gym or that Jay Lethal's class to become a professional wrestler? Like, what was it that you said, I'm going to do this?
Well, um, I I've always wanted to do it because I've always been a wrestling fan. You talk about from the time you come home from the hospital. It's the same way for me. I mentioned my grandmother earlier. Her and my grandfather, she was from Arkansas. He's from West Virginia. And back in the days, it's all you if you could get it on TV, it was what you watched. But my grandfather's favorite was wrestling. And he would consume any type of wrestling that was in front of him. And AWA, NWA, any local stuff, whatever he could get his hands on. And one of the reasons Sting became my favorite is because he was my grandpa's favorite. And my grandfather was salt of the earth, World War II veteran, coal miner, a man. Like, I do things with my hands that have me exhausted and tired at the end of the day, but I'm nothing compared to that man. Like, he was the hardest worker. And so I was like, if my papa loves Sting, then there's got to be something the Sting guy. Oh, and there it is. He's amazing. So we watched wrestling anytime I was down there, and they lived right next door to us. So we lived out in the woods. So it was always fun to go and watch wrestling with them. And when my grandfather passed away, my grandmother and I called her my nanny. We'd watch it together because she liked watching it feel closer to him. And so I was just a lifelong fan. Years later, during like the end of the Monday Night Wars, my brother and I, who were only about 4.5 years apart, got into like a little brother scuffle, as brothers do. And he made me so mad because he turned off wrestling. And so I took a very small plastic chair, and it happened to be a chair. I was just looking for anything I could get my hands on to just hit him. And I took this chair and hit him, And right at that point, when I did that, my dad had walked in the door and saw the whole thing. And he was like, "You can't watch wrestling ever again." Yeah, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, this this will not stand, you know. And so I would sneak over to my grandma's and we'd still watch. She was like, "I won't tell him if you don't,
I
you
love
know."
your
And I was like, "Okay."
grandma. I love your grandma.
She's the most amazing person. And so I'm dragging on here, but long term storytelling of going to make that leap is I make a lot of references to 4 years ago and how I basically wanted to change my life. I just kind of took control of my life because for a long time I didn't really speak up for myself. I was clean cut government cheese before the cheese. And I I'd always wanted to do it, and I kind of talk about an epiphany moment. I just said, I don't want to wonder about this whenever I'm 50, uh, or even 40, or even, you know, or into my however long I can live. I don't want to wonder whether or not I can do something. And even when I became the cheese, I only wanted one match. That's all. I spent the money for the school. I spent the money for the gear, and wrestling boots, and you know, and my first match, you know, it was in a rumble, and
Which
it,
is like everybody, or 99% of
yeah,
people, right?
par for the course, right? And I was just so proud that I was able to do it. And then, you know, because I it was something very quietly deep within my thoughts and in my soul, really, that I said to my nanny and my papa. I was like, I did it. I did it for us, you know, because we always watched it. Because my papa would say, "Boy, you're rough and tumble. You can get out there. You ought to get in there and see what you can do." You know, like he would always say little things like that, and it was like it was like encouraging, like, "Hey, I believe in you, go do it." But he wasn't like, "Get out there and get some boots and do the thing."
Hmm.
But you know, those kids, when you're a kid, those words like that kind of have an impact. And so I always thought about it, and I said, I don't want to wonder what if just for me. I don't want to wonder what if for my beloved grandparents. This is another list of things that I want to do for me, and and to really kind of keep them in the front of my mind, my grandparents being them, and keep that, and it kind of keeps them alive, and in my mind, but it's doing that for me, doing the first selfish thing for me that I'd ever done in my life, and doing it for them was what pushed me and made me want to do it. Now I keep doing it. I can't stop.
Right? The cheese is on a roll, literally.
Yeah.
Bad pun right there. What's in the future for the cheese?
You know, honestly, so this year I'm reevaluating things, and not going anywhere anytime soon if I can help it. I'm just going to be very selective about the shows that I choose, and I want to continue growing trivia with the cheese, so I continue being the cheese in another facet of life, and I want to continue doing the charity work stuff as the cheese. You know, just I really this year I do short term and long term goals. Long term, I want to wrestle and be the cheese as long as I can. Um, Short term for this year, um, is just become continue to learn to be a father, uh, as Big Daddy Cheese, but be be heavier involved in some branding, because I've had some folks reach out to me, about, you know, branding, and marketing products and stuff like that. So I want to continue to explore all those little things, but I also want to continue to be a student of the game and try and be a better wrestler and grow my little regional empire that I started.
Oh, fantastic. Now, I can't end this interview without asking you what your favorite type of cheese is. Uh-oh.
Sorry, we cut out there.
We did cut out. We did cut out. So I can't end the interview
Sorry.
without asking. That's okay. So I can't end the interview without asking the
Oh,
cheese what his favorite type of cheese is.
oh well, you know what? Um, just like if you ask me what my favorite album is, that's like really hard. And for me, it's situational.
Okay.
But I would say, somebody's asked me this before, and I would normally say cheddar, but I got like a ton of cheese as gifts for the holidays, if you can believe it.
I can
Which
believe it.
I never cheese as a gift, just so everybody knows. But I think my favorite right now, because I was just gnawing on some for a promo, was Havarti dill. I mean, it's a nice, creamy, nutty, delicate cheese that is just, you can eat it right off the block, or you can put it with a cracker, and it's just like, it's fantastic. And the dill really helps it out and kind of gets you there. But that right now currently is my favorite.
Okay. Where can people follow the cheese at?
You can follow me on Instagram at the Cheese Pro. You can follow me on Twitter at the Cheese PW. And if you search on YouTube or Facebook, either one, if you search for the Cheese Pro Wrestler, I will pop up and I'll be there. And yeah, I mean, I have my merch store on Pro Wrestling Tees, but I'm actually going to be partnering with another website soon. More details to come later. So that's where you can get cheese merch online, but I can guarantee you it's a lot of fun to get cheese merch in person. So
It's always more fun. That's what I love about the indie shows more than, I mean, just with everything is the after the show a lot of the times is even as much fun as the show itself, with all the wrestlers are hanging out, doing the autographs, the meet and greet, the merchandise. It's such an experience. And I'm glad that, like, I get to see it through you guys as well too. And I mean, just keep doing what you're doing, man. You're doing just amazing things out there.
thank you. That means a lot, buddy.
Yeah, I'm glad I know we've talked a couple times in person, and
Yeah.
it was one of those things that it was like, well, the next show I see you at, because it's been like, I think DMC show was the last show I saw you at,
I
up in
That's correct.
Sanford, right? And we
Mhm.
talked that night. I'm like, okay, the next show I see you at, because I had the interview scheduled for that night, we're gonna do it, but like, it's just so hard. I mean, you're a busy guy, I'm a busy guy, we're 4.5 hours apart, and I'm like, I want to talk to you. We're going to make this happen. That's the whole reason for the podcast now too, is to make these interviews happen.
I'm glad you did. I really enjoyed talking to you. Anytime you see I'm on a show and you want me to talk to the promoter about it, come on. You're welcome wherever I am, brother.
Well, we appreciate it. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you've got to get back. You've got a lot of important things to take care of. So definitely had a great conversation. I'm glad we made this interview happen, Cheese.
Thank you, buddy.
All right, guys. If you like interviews like this with the cheese, and if you haven't already, make sure you're following all that merchandise. I honestly, probably the second coolest pair of sunglasses after the Bret Hart sunglasses are the cheese sunglasses. They're right. Oh, they might actually be the coolest ones. I don't know.
Oh,
I
I'll
need
take it.
I need a pair of the cheese sunglasses. I gotta order myself a pair.
Yeah.
All right, guys. If you like interviews like this with the cheese, make sure you stay tuned in here to Toned In Entertainment for future videos. Subscribe to the channel. Do it. Go now. Do it now.